good, everybody? It's your boy, Big Baby Jonathan here. Welcome to the latest edition of the Big Baby Jonathan Sports Podcast Show. Online right now, I got Mark Medina. How's it going, man?
I'm doing well. How you holding up?
I'm doing good, man. So, how's your quarantine going? And tell us what have you been doing during the quarantine?
Yeah, I mean it's such a tough ordeal. I mean, thankfully I'm still healthy, still employed, but it's been busy. I mean, it's kind of been a mix of on one hand it's almost like free agency where there's days where you're on the phone a lot and chasing news and trying to get calls returned. And then there's other days where it feels like what was going on during the NBA lockout in 2011, where you're trying to come up with story ideas, you're trying to pitch ideas to folks, and just nothing's falling through. So, that's definitely kept me busy enough, but I'd much rather prefer covering the games and practices for sure.
Yeah, for me, man, I've just been doing my podcast, implementing different ideas like Chargers, NFL, MLB. Just keeping busy, man, you know?
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, it's not like for me, I'm not wondering how much what I can do today, or how to keep myself entertained. Thankfully, I'm still working, but I'm also used to going to games late at night. So as a result, in the evening, I am catching up a little bit on reading and watching TV and all that fun stuff. But it's unsettling times for sure. But I'm fortunate that I'm still healthy and still working because I think when you look at the bigger picture of things, any frustration with the NBA season being on hiatus and what that means for the Lakers or any team, obviously pales to what's actually going on with all the different deaths and people losing their jobs because of COVID-19.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. I'm staying inside. All I do before I just leave, go get groceries, come back. It's too risky out there. You know what I mean?
I mean, that's what you're supposed to do, right? They're saying stay at home, don't go out. Those are essential distancing. It might seem boring, but it's going to be what's needed to be done to flatten the curve here.
Yeah. So, you work for national reporter for USA Today. So tell us a little bit about being an NBA reporter.
Yeah, it's been fun. This is my first year with USA as a national NBA writer. As you know, Jonathan, I covered the Lakers for a little bit, first as a blogger with the LA Times, and then a beat writer with the LA Daily News, and then for 2 years I was the Warriors beat writer with Bay Area News Group. And I think there's a different rhythm to it. With both of those roles, when I was covering the Lakers and the Warriors, I was at every single game, every single practice, shoot around, media availability. And that's not to say that this isn't as busy. Sometimes it's busier, but I kind of float around where I don't go to a lot of Lakers and now corporate games because I'm based in LA again, but I travel around the Western Conference, depending on marquee games. Maybe I can get one-on-ones or features on a respective team if I'm in that town. So I think on one hand, it gives you some more freedom and flexibility that you're not just having to follow all the day-to-day developments with one team, but you also have to have a broader perspective. All the different moving parts around the league. So, when teams come into LA, I try to see what sort of things I can set up with them, try to see where I can travel, and then if there's news that hits, thankfully my colleague Jeff Silget's a really good guy to work with, but we're beholden to some of those major things going on. So sometimes you kind of have to drop what you're doing and change plans. So it's never a dull moment, to say the least.
Yeah. I asked you this question yesterday. We had technical difficulties. What was your favorite moment or favorite story about being a sports writer?
Man, favorite story. That's really hard to say. I think it's the overall theme of like when I covered the Lakers and the Warriors. Just the fact that you were covering teams that people cared about. They had won championships. They have so much star talent on that team, and so I think it was a really good crash course into learning what it takes to cover a major beat, because there's so many other outlets that are also covering that team, and so you have to find your way to compete, not just on news, but also differentiate yourself in the marketplace with different long-term stories. So I think that's kind of the major thing. I mean, you can go down the line as far as Kobe Bryant memories, may rest in peace, or any other Laker, and with the Warriors with Steph Curry or Kevin Durant. But I think it's really kind of the big picture of, these were two accomplished NBA teams that I got to cover, and I certainly did not care one way or the other if these teams won or not. I was really just rooting to make sure I got deadline, get good stories, and minimize my losses of getting beat on the compared to my competitors. But the fact that both of those teams have such a devoted fan base and are so relevant in the NBA, I couldn't have asked for anything more.
Yeah, man, that's you do a good job at what you do, man. I love your articles that you write. Keep it up, man.
Oh, thank you. I'm really humbled to hear that.
Yeah.
And, I certainly sometimes get the opposite from folks, so I'll take any compliments my way, and I don't take it for granted.
Yeah. Before you were we talked to you yesterday before we had technical difficulties. Before you were a reporter or a sports writer, you were in Syracuse. So tell my viewers and fans, you were your Syracuse. You went to college for that.
Yeah. So if you rewind it even a little bit earlier, I grew up in York, Pennsylvania. Went to the York Suburban High School, and at that point, I knew I already wanted to get into this field. And so I started writing for my student newspaper in middle school and then in high school. And I wound up getting an opportunity because we were at a journalism workshop at my hometown paper, the York Daily Record. I talked to the sports editor about Chris Otto about trying to see if there's any writing opportunities. It was a little bit naive to think that because you're just in high school, but we were in touch. And then by the time my sophomore year hit, there was an interest in having me help out with some of their Friday night football coverage. So I did that from my sophomore year to junior and senior year, and I also helped out a little bit with basketball and baseball, and also worked for my school's television station. And I still keep in touch with him to this day. My teacher, Joe Torrin, he's been really great. And so that really gave me a great foundation and clarity into what I want to do. So I decided to apply to a few good journalism schools, including Syracuse. Thankfully, I got in, and then I wound up working at the student newspaper there and eventually at the TV station there, doing a lot of college sports at Syracuse. First you start out with the non-revenue sports, and eventually I got to be able to do football, basketball, and lacrosse, which is one of their main sports in Syracuse. And, each summer I was able to also do a summer internship. So after my sophomore year, I interned at Inside Lacrosse Magazine in Baltimore, Maryland. After my junior year, I interned at the Washington Times. After I graduated my senior year, I interned at the Richmond Times-Dispatch in Richmond, Virginia. And I, fortunately was able to parlay that into an internship with the LA Times shortly after that internship in Richmond ended. So I moved out west, and, kind of the rest is history, where that evolved into an entry-level position in the sports department at the LA Times. That lasted about 8 months, and then they had a round of layoffs, unfortunately. I was one of the casualties, but they quickly rehired me back a few weeks later to run their Lakers blog, and I think that was the biggest opportunity there because that was, my foot in the door and being able to cover a high-profile team. And certainly I was low on the totem pole. I wasn't one of the beat writers traveling. I wasn't one of the columnists writing opinions. I was shooting video and updating our website and doing things from there. But, I parlayed that in the middle of the 2009-10 season when the Lakers won the championship against the Celtics, and I got through that gig up through the lockout season in 2011-12, and then I became a beat writer for the Lakers for the LA Daily News that first year that I'm sure Laker fans want to forget, when Steve Nash and Dwight Howard came on board and the season ended with Kobe's Achilles injury, and I wound up being that beat writer up through Luke Walton's first season coaching the Lakers, and then went to the Bay Area News Group to cover the Warriors. Same role, but I figured it's good to kind of expand my bandwidth because I ultimately wanted to become an NBA writer. So I did that for 2 years, and then fortunately this past summer, USA Today was looking to hire another NBA reporter based out west. And so I think the cards kind of aligned that I was had already covered the Lakers, already covered the Warriors, had some familiarity with, people in the organization, and they asked if I was willing to move back to LA, and it was a no-brainer. So it's been one interesting journey, to say the least.
Yeah, that's what's up, man. But for me, man, I was going to try to be a sports writer. I used to live in Sacramento and didn't have any of those classes, so I just no, let me try a podcast. And I implemented my podcast, and I love what I do. I'm very passionate, you know what I mean? And sometimes I get hate, but actually I thrive off the hate, you know what I mean? Like the late great Kobe Bryant. And speaking of Kobe, man, what was it like interviewing Kobe? And were there questions that you were asking him tough to ask him, or you just went for it?
I just went for it. I mean, he was someone that, I think respected people who weren't afraid to ask him tough questions. I mean, I think for him, it was a matter of, hey, do you have the same level of dedication, preparation that he showed on the basketball court? And, a lot of good memories. I think for him, he was a case study as well as Syracuse coach Jim Boeheim, where these were two high-profile people that really taught you what it takes to interview people, because you can't be afraid to ask tough questions, but you also don't want to be the guy that's just trying to instigate and get a rise out of them. I think that they respected people regardless of who their affiliate was. People that did their homework, asked intelligent questions, was curious, was creative. But at the same time, I mean, because of the tragedy with Kobe and his 13-year-old daughter Gianna, when I reflect back, there's certainly going to be a lot of memories, but because of all that, it's going to be a lot of sorrow. I mean, I'm very thankful that I was able to interview him for a few stories for USA Today, 9 days before he passed away. But the fact that it was only 9 days before that happened, and the subject matter, which involved how he was making his transition from his NBA career to all these different projects he was doing and coaching his daughter, it really, I think, exacerbated the grief that I already would have felt. And, look, I can't compare that grief to what the Bryant family is going through, the Lakers, anyone in the NBA, but I can totally relate to why, Laker fans and everyone around the world, were really somber and, in tears when that tragic news came about on January 26th. And, I think on one hand, this whole year, not just in the NBA, but in this whole world, it's really reinforced of, don't take anything for granted and kind of be, even through the tough times, be grateful for what you have. And I think that lesson can't be emphasized enough with what's going on with the coronavirus and then what went on with Kobe's tragedy. But at the same time, people that have been feeling down this year, it's for legitimate reasons. There's very real pain that people are going through, and I think certainly wish that those things wouldn't have happened, but I think it's because of those tragedies, it's reinforced, I think, the need for everyone together to just make the best of what you have, count your blessings every day, and try to support each other.
Yeah, I agree with that, man. I saw a video that Kobe always said, just don't be sad, put your head up, keep moving forward, put one foot in front of the other. Life's too short to be buckled down and being sad, And I agree with that.
Yeah, for sure.
I agree with that 100%.
I mean, this is kind of a rough analogy, but it's, I think it kind of applies to the situation. Jonathan, when he tore his Achilles and he had these injuries toward the end of his career, he certainly had his frustrations. He's even admitted that he had some self-doubt. And that's not wrong. I think that that's a healthy thing to have. You're showing that you're vulnerable. You're not pretending that everything's perfect. But I think the thing that Kobe often emphasized is that, through those tough times, you can't allow it to derail your determination to try to find a way to scrap and fight. And look, when you're looking at Kobe's career, as nothing was ever perfect. I think there's a lot of, fair-minded folks that have different opinions about his leadership style and how he was as a teammate and that sort of thing. But, what isn't debatable is one, his competitiveness, his talent. But I think the most important thing is his resiliency. So, I think one of the underrated parts about Kobe's career and legacy, you can point to the 5 championships and, the 4th place standing on all-time scoring list. But I think the way he handled the end of his career where he easily could have, hung it up after having 3 consecutive season-ending injuries in his final season, filled with a lot of injuries to count. And that wasn't his best basketball. He'll be the first to admit it. But he still was able to overcome them because of his devotion to his recovery and his, maniacal determination to find a way to still be effective. And, there's a lot of losing along with that, but I think you could also argue that there was a lot of winning in the fact that he overcame injuries that others would have quit on. And, hey, look, he still had enough to end his, career in his final game scoring 60 points. 37 years old, and I don't think really anyone else could have done that.
Yeah, man, Kobe Bryant's a legend. I love his work ethic. He fights through anything. I remember when he broke his finger and Gary Vee popped it back in place and then scored on the next play. Like, Kobe's demeanor on the court is going to be missed. And just outside of basketball, just his drive for everything he does around the world. His book, he takes things seriously when it comes to getting the work done. You know what I mean? He won an Academy Award. You know what I mean? I'm going to miss Kobe, man. Tremendous, man.
For sure. And I think that, the tragic thing about Kobe is that, look, he lived a full life. He had everything he wanted. He obviously wanted to win more and more and more in the NBA, but, I sense that toward the tail end of his career, and certainly when I last spoke with him in person, that he was at peace with his accomplishments. But what's tragic is that, he was still young, 41 years old, and he had so much ambition left for his next chapter. And then the other thing is Gianna was just getting started. She's 13 years old. Yeah. She's just growing into a teenager. She has these ambitions of wanting to become a really good women's basketball player. She's taking, a lot of Kobe's mannerisms in terms of his competitiveness and his intellectual curiosity. I can't even fathom and process fully just how you wrap your head around that and the grief the family's going through. And certainly we saw a window into that during his memorial and Gianna's memorial when Vanessa Bryant spoke. And a lot of courage and a lot of conviction, a lot of strong, warm words about both, her husband and Kobe and her daughter and Gianna. But I still, to this day, can't wrap my head around kind of making sense of it all.
Yeah, me too, man. It's crazy, man. Like, Kobe's daughter, Gianna, man, I see, the Mamba mentality in her, her way that because I saw a couple highlights. She had that Kobe Bryant mentality, man, scoring the basketball, playing that defense, passionate, And Kobe was good coaching, too, at the Mamba Academy, man. He had that, veteran coaching leadership over there. You know what I mean?
For sure. It's, there's a lot of things that he left, but I think, again, what's tragic and has left me, a little wistful, first certainly when it first happened and since then is that as much as he accomplished so much on the court, there was still so much left that he wanted to accomplish off the court, and tragically that's not to be.
Yeah, man, Kobe's going to miss tremendously, man. But Mark Medina, I want to thank you for being on the show, man. Go ahead and give out your social media so they can follow you.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Jonathan. Mark Medina, I'm with USA Today, so you could certainly go to the website, usatoday.com. We're in really tough times here with the coronavirus, so, supporting journalism, including USA Today, is huge. So we have a lot of good subscription deals, print and online, and, it's not just a publication that gives you a lot of sports. It's got the main news of what's going on. But I'm also on social media, Twitter, Mark G_Medina, Instagram, Medina Syracuse. And Jonathan, just want to end with, the fact that you were mentioning how, you have these dreams, you have these ambitions, and you want to do these things. This is the first step. You just have to keep getting reps, keep perfecting it. When mistakes happen, just work through them and just see where it takes you.
Yep. Appreciate the words of encouragement, man, and we'll talk soon.
All right. Thanks so much.